Why is it that most people have such a difficult time getting what they want? It's a question that I've asked myself my entire life. And for the longest time, I felt like I had such a difficult time getting exactly what I wanted until I learned this 8-step framework that, fortunately for you, I'm going to be sharing with you in this video that's allowed me to create a pretty fantastic life for myself. I have an awesome business. I'm pretty strong now. I live in a great place. I have a great relationship with my team and my family and all these different types of things. And in this video, I'm going to share that 8-step framework that I've been able to follow in order to create whatever it is that I want in my life, or the things that I'm currently doing right now to create the things that I don't yet have. So with that being said, why is it that most people don't ever get what they want in their life? It starts off with number one, you need to identify what is it exactly that you actually want. Because I was on a call with a client the other day and I was asking them what's really your goal right now? And they told me that they just wanted to make a good living coaching athletes online. And I'm like, okay, awesome. What does that mean to you? And they couldn't even think about it. Like they literally didn't even have like a definitive, clear-cut goal in their mind. And then to take it even one step further, they didn't even have a reason as to why they needed a certain amount of money in the first place. And so a lot of people, they say these really vague goals. They have these really vague goals and they don't ever exactly know what it is that they want. Or on the flip side, people will see others online who they deem as successful, right? And they start to think like, oh, I should try and be like that person because they have the things that I want. So I should try and live my life exactly like that person is. Like, I know some people, like some of my clients, copy a lot of the stuff that I do. For better or for worse. Like maybe some of them are doing it because they've actually implemented a lot of the stuff and seen success and they feel like it adds value. But I think sometimes, and I'm 100% guilty of this, at least I was, seeing somebody else who I looked up to who was in a position that I wanted to be and taking everything that they said that they wanted or that they did as the absolute truth and putting their opinion over my own. And you can never really get what you want. Like you can never hit a target if you don't know what that target actually is that you're trying to hit. It sounds so simple, but ask yourself right now, like what exactly is it that you want and why do you want that? If you can't give a specific answer of this is exactly what I want, you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out with absolute clarity what that is. And that's step number 2. Is get clarity on what that actually looks like and what it's going to take. Because, for example, you could very easily say like, oh, I want to be a billionaire, right? I want to be a billionaire. Well, realistically, like what is that going to take? That's probably going to take a ton of sacrifice. It's probably going to take decades and decades and decades. It's probably going to take me to do something completely different than what I'm doing right now. Is that actually what I want? Is that actually like, am I actually willing to dedicate that amount of time and that amount of sacrifice in order to achieve that goal? If the answer is no, then go back to step number 1 and figure it out. Well, what really is most important? And as you go through this list, you'll realize, you'll probably get halfway through and be like, oh, wow, like this actually isn't what I want. And then you'll have to restart. And that's totally normal. That's totally okay. But most people just never spend any time actually thinking about, number 1, identifying what is it exactly that I want and getting very, very clear on that. And then number 2, having a clear path or a clear idea of what it's actually going to take. Okay? Because if we never do that, then we can't do number 3, which is come up with a plan. Okay? Think about if you wanted to, I don't know, go somewhere new, right? Like you wanted to go see a baseball game at your local Major League Stadium. I might be able to see Chase Field from here. Let's say I wanted to go to Chase Field. I could say like, yeah, I want to go to Chase Field. Like I'm willing to get in the car and drive there. But if I never follow like a GPS in order to get there, what is the probability that I ever get to Chase Field? The answer is very low. Or maybe eventually I find my way there, because generally it's that direction. Maybe eventually I find my way there, but it's going to be super inefficient. It's going to take me a way longer time. So if I can come up with a plan, I know exactly what I want, I know exactly what it's going to take, and then I can come up with a clear plan that is the most direct path that I can think of right now in order to get there, then my probability of getting there goes through the roof, and I can ideally get there in the shortest amount of time that's possibly going to take, right? Number 4, and this is the part that most people skip: commit. So I used to say that I wanted to have a super awesome business, and that I wanted to help as many sports coaches as I can grow online, and I wanted to get super jacked, and I had all these goals. I was a big talker. And most people, they would listen to me talk and they're like, "Oh wow, this guy's so ambitious. He's got so many things figured out." But deep down, I had an inability to really commit. And a lot of people, you could probably relate to this right now. A lot of people are so afraid of commitment because what happens if they fully commit, they fully give themselves to it, and it doesn't work out? It's the same reason why a lot of people are afraid to commit in a relationship to somebody else, because they're afraid of what's going to happen if it doesn't work. And it's the same reason why people don't ever fully commit to a business idea. It's the same reason why people don't ever fully commit to going to the gym. What if I'm not going to be disciplined enough to stick to the routine? What if I start this business idea and it fails? People think in such negative frames of mind, right? Because our brain is designed to keep us safe, not happy. And so we look at all the possible negative outcomes, and it holds us back from ever committing. But the reality is that your level of commitment will dictate your level of success. I'm going to say that again. Your level of commitment will dictate your level of success. So if you have a 50% level of commitment, then you're going to have 50% level of success. And as soon as things get difficult, because I guarantee they will be difficult, regardless of whatever goal that you have for yourself, you'll start looking over your shoulder. This is exactly what I was doing last year. I started running into a little bit of trouble inside my business. I was having difficulty really scaling it. And I kind of stalled a little bit because I wasn't fully committed. And actually, I had a mentor to me the other day tell me that commitment is binary, which is a really interesting concept to think about. Because I used to think, how committed are you? He believes that commitment is binary. You're either committed to it or you're not. And so most people, what they want to do is they want to have this goal, and then they want to stick their toe in the water, and then they expect by sticking their toe in the water that they're going to learn how to swim. But that's not how anything goes in life. So commitment is the most important part of this entire, framework. Because number 5 is to take relentless action. And if you're super committed to the goal, you're committed to the plan, then the plan becomes easy. If you're committed to the outcome, you're committed to the target, then everything else becomes easy. Well, it's okay, well, what would it take, right? What would it actually take for me to get there? Am I willing to do that? 100%. Okay, well, what does that action, or what does that, path actually look like? Am I fully committed? Yes, 100%. Now I can go and take relentless action with a 100% clear mind, because I know exactly what I need to be doing. I'm fully committed to it. I'm not worried about not achieving the outcome, because here's the thing. You can't fail if you don't quit. So if we just continue to take action and we're fully committed and we keep adjusting the plan to get to the goal, then eventually you're going to get there. But a lot of people have these thoughts of themselves I'm not sure if I can ever get there. The reality is that actions lead to results. So if you just take the necessary actions and you don't quit, over time you can continue to get better and better and better and better and better. Action is actually the easiest part of this. See, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm just having difficulty taking action. I don't know why I can't take action. I can't do the work." It's because you're not committed. If you're having a difficult time doing something, it's because you're not committed. If you're procrastinating right now, it's because you're not actually committed to the goal. There's something in your mind that's holding you back from doing that action, right? Humans are behavioral beings. and they will always default to the path of least resistance. However, if we have a strong enough reason to take action to accomplish something, we will do whatever it takes in order to get there. But most people don't have a strong enough reason. Most people aren't actually super committed, which is why they can never take action. Now, if you've gotten to the point where you're taking action, relentless action, and you're consistent with it, and consistency is just a byproduct of commitment, right? Everything comes back to commitment. Then, along the way, we need to measure our progress. So, for example, let's say we're trying to lose a bunch of weight, or let's say we're trying to get into really good shape. Right now, it's my goal to get sub 10% body fat by my birthday, June 13, 2026. That'll be my 29th birthday. And every single day, I wake up in the morning and I weigh myself under the exact same conditions. And I just got a DEXA scan last weekend, so that way I can see where my body fat percentage is now. And then I measure my progress every single day on the scale, and that's going to tell me, am I moving in the right direction or am I not? Right? What gets measured gets improved. And so most people don't want to measure things because they're afraid of not seeing the progress that they want. They're afraid of that level of accountability because it goes back to the commitment. They're not actually committed to getting the outcome. And they're so attached to the outcome, their ego is so attached to the outcome, that when they don't see the progress that they want, they start to feel like less. They start to feel terrible about themselves and feel like they're less of a person. So they don't measure their progress. They don't ever take action, because what happens if they fail? So that way they're never actually committed, so they stay safe and they run in the same rut over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Super common. And that is why most people never actually get what they want, because of these these mental tweaks that they need to make. And I'm not saying that it's easy to do any of this by any means. I have dedicated so much time to mastering my mind and mastering my emotions, and I'm still working on it every single day. I'm nowhere close to perfect. And I try and portray that on social media as much as I possibly can. But I'm committed. And that is why I'm consistent. That is why I'm able to take the action. That's why I'm able to get the results. That's why I'm able to measure my progress with a clear mind and look at it as data objectively rather than a reflection of me. Looking at the data without judgment and measuring that progress over time. Okay? Number 7 is to reflect and review the data, right? And to recalibrate. Is this exactly what I want to do? Now that I'm measuring this progress, like, for example, I was thinking that I wanted to get super shredded in the fall, so I started losing weight. And I got down to about 193, 194. I was pretty lean. I was feeling pretty good. But I was like, you know what? This is probably the strongest I've ever been. It's the winter time right now, so I'm not really going to be taking my shirt off, going to the pool, anything like that. It's not even hot outside. It's pretty cold. Why don't I just send it for 315? And I'd wanted to bench 315 for the longest. So I reflected, and I was like, okay, this is not actually what I want. I recalibrated the goal, and I repeated the cycle, right, which is step number 8. So by reflecting in step number 7, we can take an objective look and ask ourselves, like, do I want to continue down this path? Because the reality is that you could change your mind, you could change your direction at any time. And when you understand that I can change my direction, I can change my mind, I can do that at any time, you are much more likely to make decisions quickly and start acting on them immediately. And then as soon as you get new data where you realize, like, oh, this isn't what I want anymore, boom, you can pivot immediately, start the cycle over again. But so many people get attached to the things that they're doing in the day-to-day. They get attached to the results. And so because of that, they're afraid to look like a failure. They're afraid to look like they were wrong or an idiot. If they commit to something, they go all in for it, and then everybody is going to point and laugh at them when they start to do something else. That's why people don't want to post on social media. That's why people don't want to start a business. That's why people don't want to outright say what their opinions actually are, because they're afraid to have to eat their words later because they place the opinions of other people above their own opinion. And so because of that, they're afraid to commit. They can never take action. They sit there and they run in circles, and then they point at other people and they judge other people for actually going after what it is that they want, because they are so insecure that they need to point at other people and try and bring them down to their level in an effort to make themselves feel better about themselves. When in reality, they're just lying to themselves. So if you can be truthful with yourself, if you can detach your self-worth and find your own self-worth and your own confidence in the things that you do every single day, and not attach it to the outcomes that you're getting, regardless of if they're really good or really bad. Because I see sometimes people will have a ton of success and they'll start walking around like they're the man, but as soon as things start to come down a little bit, they start questioning their own self-worth, and then boom, it's a straight shot down. That's why you see these people that live roller coaster lives. That's exactly how I was, because I was so attached to these outcomes, because all I wanted was for other people to like me, when in reality what I needed was to love myself for exactly how I am and accept myself as an imperfect human being that will never be perfect, and continue to strive to be a more perfect human being, and continue to strive for what I want and walk in alignment with what I want to do. And that way, once I identified that root problem, then I could figure out what I really wanted. Then I could figure out what is that actually going to take. Then I could come up with a plan. Then I could commit to it. Then I could take relentless action, measure progress along the way, and then reflect from an objective third-party perspective without judgment on myself. And then I could repeat the cycle and recalibrate and continue over and over and over and over and over again. Because I'm only 28 years old right now. Imagine if I just stick to this process for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, the rest of my life. What's going to happen in 3 decades, in 5 decades? Where am I going to be? So most people are thinking so short term. They are so worried about what other people think that they can never actually manifest or alchemize the reality that they actually want. So if you follow this 8-step framework and you can detach your self-worth from the outcome, and you can look at this data as objective and look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is it that I really want? And then get clear on what that's going to take, create a plan to get there, commit to that plan regardless, and tell yourself, I am going to do this or I am going to die trying. That is commitment. Then we can take relentless action with a clear mind, knowing that no matter what happens, we are going to be okay, because you can't fail if you don't quit. We measure the progress along the way. We reflect every so often to make sure that we're still walking on the path. And then we recalibrate and repeat the cycle every single time that the cycle is completed. That's exactly how you can get what you want. Happy Friday, y'all. Catch you in the next one. Peace.